Let's tell you a little bit more about what's happening with the US presidential election. It looked like it was done and dusted, didn't it, until that first presidential debate. And we're just hearing from the latest polls. It's a Reuters Ipsos tracking poll. And apparently Mitt Romney has pulled ahead of President Barack Obama, 47 to 44% in that opinion poll. US commentator Jeffrey Robinson joining us now from New York. It's a vice presidential debate that we want to talk about, Jeffrey. But first of all, your comments on that poll. As I was saying, it did look as though it was all over bar the shouting. Not anymore.
Well, no, not anymore. Obama's performance last week was pretty dismal. And I think it must serve as some sort of a wake-up call to the Democrats that they've got to do something and do it very soon. Now, that particular poll, who knows? I mean, these are snapshots, and we know about polls. There was one last night that said likely voters still favored Obama. The point is the election's very close, and a lot hinges not only on tonight, but on the next two debates.
Talk to us about the characters involved, Biden and Ryan.
Well, they're both characters. Ryan is what's called a wonk, a policy wonk and a math wonk. And interestingly enough, and it's not been discussed much, he's also on the ballot in his district in Wisconsin for re-election to the House, just in case this vice presidential thing doesn't work out. Joe Biden is everybody's Uncle Joe. He's the guy you want to have at your table for Thanksgiving. Watch tonight. He will talk about Scranton, Pennsylvania, where he grew up. He will talk about his grandfather. He's a very folksy, homey kind of guy. Gaffe-prone, yes, but he's also extremely experienced. He's been the senator from Delaware for 40 years. He was elected against the run of politics when I guess Richard Nixon won, and he nevertheless got elected as a Democrat that year. He's extremely experienced, very canny, and can be very tough. And I think what you have to see tonight, this is not about the knockdown one way or the other. Biden's job tonight is to stop the Republican momentum. He's got to talk about math. He's got to talk about all the things Obama didn't talk about, the 47%, the fact that $5 trillion will be added to the budget by these tax cuts. He's got to get into that and stop the momentum to set up for Obama next week. It's a baseball analogy. He's got to get on base so Obama can hit the home run and bring in the runs.
And as far as Paul Ryan's concerned, he was a former personal trainer in the gym every morning ahead of being on the campaign trail. He's the one who's going to say, I'm young, I'm fresh, and I can lead us to victory.
That's what he's going to say, but he's up against a very canny guy. Now, they always say vice presidential debates don't matter. This one's going to matter, again, because it's going to set up for the presidential debate. But the famous one, the very famous debate for vice presidents was Senator Benson from Texas against Dan Quayle in '88. And that's when Quayle said, I'm the next John Kennedy. And Benson looked at him and said, I knew Jack Kennedy. Jack Kennedy was my friend. Senator, you are no Jack Kennedy. Great line, great moment. The historic moment in vice presidential debates did not change the needle one bit. Quayle and Bush went on to win.
Interesting, isn't it, how presidential debates and vice presidential debates are becoming perhaps even more and more important. We hear that it's not about personality politics, but I suppose last week's debate showed that it was.
Oh, it absolutely is. You know, most of the people in this country have had their minds made up. We're talking about that 3 or 4% in the middle who are still undecided. And that's what this is all about. You sit there and you say, I'm rooting for Obama, so he must have won. I'm rooting for Romney, so he must have won. But those 3 or 4% are paying attention. There's only, 27 days left to the election. People are paying attention, and what happens tonight will matter next week. It'll set up one way or the other for the next debate on the 16th.
What happened last week? What happened with President Obama? It didn't look as though he'd come to the party. Was it because he was trying to be presidential, or was it because it was about the economy and he knew he couldn't win?
Well, the Chicago campaign has said that he wanted to be presidential. He wanted to stay above the fray. He's very professorial, and he doesn't like this forum. Also, and you find this with presidents trying for a second term, they're not used to having somebody in their face saying you're wrong. He doesn't feel comfortable in that. Now, will he get up for next week? Everybody who's going to vote Democrat certainly hopes so. Does he have that same fire in his belly that Romney has? Everybody who's voting Democrat hopes so. The Republicans hope not. Again, they're infinitely fascinating because politics has become show business in a very real sense, thanks to television. people want to be entertained by these things, and they get a very big audience. I mean, it's interesting because the Republicans find themselves kind of like, and you'll see this tonight with Ryan, kind of like come dancing. They're sometimes dancing to a different tune together. Romney does not seem to have a real solid political core one way or the other. Ryan is a stern, severe conservative, and they sometimes conflict. Biden is Uncle Joe, who sometimes says silly things. It makes for infinitely fascinating television.
Yeah, we certainly found that during the first debates here in the UK with Nick Clegg and Gordon Brown. It was a bit of a game changer here. But what about those spin rooms that we see immediately afterwards? How important are they?
Well, unimportant, completely unimportant. That's where everybody claims victory. And both sides will claim victory. And both sides will continue on saying that we won and the other guys lost. And I think that's pretty much discounted. What really matters are the sound bites that come out of the debate. And it's very interesting because in the last one, there was not a single sound bite that really got quoted except for the business with Big Bird. And Romney saying he's going to kill Big Bird. Obama the next day saying he's going to crack down on Big Bird, but not on Wall Street. So there was that kind of a soundbite, like the soundbite that came out of the Benson-Quayle debate. Look for soundbites. They're both going to try and find that one, Romney called them zinger, that will show up on the news the next morning. And people will think, well, look, they're quoting him, he must have won.
Can you tell us how to get to Sesame Street?
Yeah, Sesame Street. The other thing is, if you watch it without the sound on, you frequently have an idea of who won. It's a very interesting theory that you can see the more animated. And clearly, Romney last week was much more animated. The president just stood there and sort of shook his head and was very quiet. It was not his best moment.
OK, well, let's see what happens next week. For now, good to talk to you as always. Thanks very much indeed, Jeffrey. Thank you. You can watch that vice presidential debate live on Sky News, online and on the iPad from 2 o'clock tomorrow morning.